Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animated features not made by the mouse. I'm your host, Octaviano, and today I'll be talking about the first movie, as far as I know, the first, at least theatrical movie, directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelinek. If those names don't sound familiar to you, they've done a lot of work. They're actually coming out with the Super Mario Bros. Movie pretty soon at the time of this recording. And their first theatrical movie was Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Hey, before we get this video started, I just want to say thank you for coming on. And if you enjoyed this video, like it, comment below for whatever reason you have, whether it's a question or you just want to give a shout out or just whatever. And if you've been watching a few of my videos, why haven't you subscribed yet? I mean, I'm sure some of you already have, but if you haven't, please consider subscribing. It won't hurt. It will get you more of my content. And if you really want to see some more stuff, ring that bell. Again, thank you for coming on, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, I know a lot of people have their issues with Teen Titans Go. It has become more beloved over the years. I mean, this show is at this point running at a decade. But yeah, there's still a lot of people who have issues with the show, and honestly, I mean, I kind of get why, but at the same time, I think a lot of people need to chill out. This is a show that, for the most part, has been hated by so many people because it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a parody of really realistically DC as a whole, but it's supposed to be like of the Teen Titans, and it's specifically using the designs and character, pretty much like the versions of the 2003 show, which a lot of people love. I love it too, but for me personally, I prefer Teen Titans Go. I just think it's a very smart, absurd comedy. It's pretty much SpongeBob mixed with Teen Titans. And in many ways, it's like the kids show version. And I say kids show kind of loosely because while it technically is targeted at kids, it's rated PG, and for a good reason. A lot of the jokes get very dark very quickly. But yeah, it's pretty much like a kids show version of shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It's just, here's a bunch of assholes doing horrible things. And to me, it's just hilarious. For the most part, these are the characters that you know: Robin, Starfire, Beast Boy, Cyborg, and Raven. But they are, of course, turned more comedically. Like, of course, Starfire, to emphasize the fact that she's for an alien. Like, Beast Boy is turned into much more of an idiot. Cyborg is much more chill, laid back. And, you know, he often gets into trouble with Beast Boy. Raven is turned more comedically, like, even though she still has the gothy personality, they do acknowledge, like, okay, that's kind of goofy. She gets silly and crazy. And Robin is turned into a full-blown narcissist, which to me is just hilarious. It's honestly one of the funniest superhero parodies in that regard. And I honestly think this is one of the best portrayals of Dick Grayson. Like, yeah, I know it's technically not one of the most accurate, but just because it's such an interesting way to go about his character, and it's such a unique and different way. It's like, okay, yeah, this is my favorite takes on it, even though I know it's very wrong, but, you know, it is worth it for this version of the show. But yeah, this is a show that is just full of, like, the most insane takes on, like, the DC universe, because, you know, the thing that I always hated was people saying, like, oh, these people don't know anything about the comics, they don't love the comics or anything like that. Like, dude, they clearly love the comics, because you can see a lot of the episodes, whether it's in the background details or in the stories or anything like that, like, they clearly know their DC stuff. It's just that they're having fun with it, which to me is why it's one of the best interpretations of these things, because so many shows and movies just try to make, like, the stuff from the comics, even the goofiest stuff, into, like, these super serious things, which sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it makes for great stories. But the problem is that they kind of forget that these are just goofy stories for kids at times. And it gets to a point where you sometimes see them, like, taking these characters so seriously that, you know, it goes into the fan mindset of, like, oh, we can't make jokes about these characters. So it is nice to see this show basically say like, look, we'll put on the clown nose on it. It's perfectly fine, it is goofy. And yeah, sometimes it's a bit childish, but for the most part, it is a very well done show that loves the material it's doing, but also understands that, look, this stuff cannot be the same way. This stuff cannot be held as sacred. We gotta tear it down. We gotta do some jokes at it. We gotta. It's funny. Some of the stuff is funny. Some of the stuff is kind of dumb. Comics aren't perfect, so it's okay to laugh at it every now and then and acknowledge that was one dumb idea. And again, it's coming from a place of love. I mean, a lot of people forget that these people, who have worked on the show have worked on other things. Like, I know at the very least, Michael Jelinek, prior to this, worked on Batman Brave and the Bold, which, if you've ever seen that, how much that loves the silly DC stuff. He worked on The Batman. I mean, granted, this isn't DC related, but he even worked on the what do you call it? The Thundercats reboot, the 2011 one, which was, that was a super serious show. So it's like, it's not like these guys don't know how to buckle down and do serious stories. It's just that they wanted to do a comedic version of it. And again, that's fine. But of course, we're talking about the movie here. And in terms of the movie, it's pretty much more of that. It is a goofy movie. The movie itself is basically, what if the Teen Titans wanted their own movie? And in turn, it becomes a whole parody of the superhero movie landscape. And you know what? As far as superhero movie parodies go, it's probably the best one, which is kind of funny to say because, it's not often that the best superhero movie parody is one that actually, well, it's not often that a parody itself is often the best one when it features the actual material from the source. Like, usually you have to make it up because, a lot of these companies are not willing to take the piss out of themselves. They're not willing to frame their characters as jokes and understand, like, look, some of the stuff, as good as our work is, can look a little dumb if you put a clown nose on it, if you look at it from a different angle, all that stuff. But yeah, it is just a really funny movie where Robin is essentially like, look, I really want my movie. And I know some people are going to point out, like, oh, by this point, he's had at least a couple of movie appearances. Like, he was in Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. He was even in the Lego Batman movie. My argument to that is, like, well, that's still not a Robin movie. And even then, it still feels like an argument against Warner Bros. Where it's like, ever since Batman and Robin, they've just felt like, oh, we can't do a Robin movie because Robin is too goofy. Like, the costume is silly, the character is silly. It was, it was a disaster for us. Like, a lot of people just hated Batman and Robin, so we cannot do Batman and Robin, or just Robin himself. We can't do a Dick Grayson movie or anything like that. We have to go serious. So it still works, even if, you got that technicality. But yeah, like, you got that. This is also a musical. Like, granted, it doesn't do more than, like, the typical animated movie, like 5 musical numbers or anything like that. But for what it's worth, it's like, how many superhero movies can you say have musical numbers? And yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, not all of them are perfect musical numbers, but for the most part, I'm like, they are catchy, they are funny. You got the Teen Titans, singing about themselves. You got an inspirational song, which is just called an upbeat or inspirational song, which is sung by Michael Bolton, of all people. Pretty funny stuff. And then you got the superhero movie song. I don't know, like, there is a lot of funny stuff in this. Cast-wise, it's pretty much everyone from the show. You got your Carrie Paytons, your Greg Sipes, your Tara Strongs. You got Scott Manville and Hendon Walk, the Titans themselves. But you also do get some celebrities in there, and they all do a really good job. Like, they got Nicolas Cage to be Superman, which is, of course, a nice nod to the fact that he was supposed to be Superman. You got Kristen Bell as this movie producer called Jade Wilson. Will Arnett as Slade. I wonder why their characters' names, rhyme even though they're not connected in any way. Okay, yeah, spoiler alert. It turns out that Jade is actually Slade in disguise. But the great thing about that is that you'd assume just by that it's like, oh, it's probably like a transphobic kind of joke, because there's a lot of movies, especially kids movies, unfortunately, where if you get like the villain disguised as a woman at some point, they're gonna do like some kind of joke where it's like, oh, that's inappropriate now, or just offensive. Funny enough, this movie does not go in that route. Like, like they do make like, okay, so he's Jade, but they never go like, oh, that's disgusting, or make a joke about how someone tried sleeping with her or anything like that. It's like, no. So it turns out that the bad guy was the fake movie producer we were dealing with. Yeah, so kudos for that. It doesn't do anything gross or offensive or anything like that. It's just taken as is. It's just a big parody of the superhero movie landscape. It still remains the best one. Like, I know there was stuff like Deadpool, or I don't know if I would really call it a parody, but Megamind would I guess counts as one, or The Incredibles. I mean, they're more like homages, but they do take the piss out of superhero stuff. But I still think that this one does it well enough where it's like, okay, yeah, it fully acknowledges like, okay, what if the world had superhero movies and superheroes actually existed in them? Okay, so well, the superheroes end up starring in these movies, and of course end up getting busy with these movies, so they don't save the world as often as they used to. Oh look, since of course by this point they already had Batman v Superman, you got like a Batman v Superman parody in this where they acknowledge the whole Martha thing and acknowledge the flaw in it. Like, okay, but what about the dad? There are a lot of silly little kids jokes, and that's perfectly fine. Like, like Wonder Woman doing like the whole thing with the bracelets. They have the character the Atom, which is, for those of you who are not into DC, just think of him as Ant-Man, but DC. Not exactly that, but the whole shrinking thing. He's treated like a bug. Stan Lee makes a cameo in this, and it's hilarious because they even acknowledge like, dude, you're in a DC movie. This is actually one of the last ones that he did, because this was back in 2018, so it was pretty much the summer before he passed away. So kind of sad, but it's still nice that even DC threw him a bone and they had fun with it. He had fun with it. It's just an hilarious little gag. But yeah, they make a lot of jokes in this regarding the whole superhero movie trend. Like, at the time there was a whole thing where DC was being mocked because, like, the cape on Superman was CG for Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I'm not sure if Batman's was as well, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a lot of CG on there. And realistically, it's kind of funny that people mocked them for it, because I know that there was also truth in that with Marvel, but that's a whole other thing. They make fun of that, like they, you have Robin when he's singing his superhero movie song. He basically acknowledged like, oh, my cape is gonna be CG or something like that. So again, just a bunch of funny CG jokes on this. It's genuinely hilarious stuff. You can definitely see the love in this for DC. Like, I know, again, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people often complain about how they don't respect DC, that this is all done in jokes and it's never taken seriously. But you can see, like, whether it's the details in the background, like there's movie posters for various things. Like, basically, like they have a bunch of different superhero movie posters. They have like Aquamanatee, Batman v Joker, Yawn of Justice. They have images of Superman with like with a mustache, because they were also looking at the fact that Justice League, which had barely come out at that point, had that whole thing in the production where it's like, oh, because Henry Cavill was busy doing Mission Impossible for the reshoots, he couldn't shave off the mustache because that was like a contractual thing. So they had to CG it off. But in this movie, they acknowledged it by having like Superman with the mustache at various points. There's a lot of stuff in the background. Like, I know you can find stores that are based like on dark side, like apocalypse. Just jokes upon jokes, and then there's characters that you can see in the background. Detective Chimp is never mentioned by name in this movie. You didn't see Detective Chimp wandering around. You see, characters like, Plastic Man. They make a joke about him being someone's dress, which pretty mature joke, but glad they put that in. There's, they have a whole gag throughout the whole movie revolving around the challengers of the unknown, which is hilarious because that's a character group that you'd be like, look, even with the whole landscape, you'd assume that they'd never even touch upon them for a movie. So it's kind of hilarious that they got this. And of course, there's even jokes about, Marvel side of thing. Like, at one point, the Teen Titans are called the Guardians of the Galaxy. There's characters that acknowledge that Spider-Man is also having his own movie. A bunch of silly stuff that is just hilarious. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm only talking about the stuff that made me laugh, but it's like all this stuff just shows like, yes, they really do have a love for this, and it's hilarious that they bring all of this in, and it's really well done with the animation on that because, granted, while the character designs are pretty much straight from the show, so, there are its limitations. The movement is, a big step up from what you would get from a TV production. The colors are, a big step up, even though it doesn't do the full shadow thing that you see with a lot of these movies that are based on shows, but you do get like different color palettes for like the time of day, the time of night, the lighting, everything like that. It's just that they don't add as many shadow tones, like how you would see on it, how you see shadows on me. You don't get that, but it's perfectly fine. The backgrounds are very well done. They're nicely colored, very detailed. It's very, because not to insult the show, but there's no denying that it's a little flat, if not very flat, when it comes to a lot of the detail that you see in the background. But with this movie, it pops a lot. You see everything just coming through, and it looks great. Yeah, like when I saw this on the big screen, because I did see this on the big screen, even though I know a lot of people didn't. Not because they weren't fans for this. It's just that, they put it out in the worst possible time. It was like late in July. I don't know if the marketing on this was all over the place. I mean, I'm sure it was enough to get the kids in there, but it's a common thing with a lot of these TV movies where it's like a lot of people just choose to avoid seeing it because it's like, well, we already see the show. And you need to really build up that interest and that audience. Like, if this came out today, I don't know if it would do any better, but it might do a little bit better just because, granted, even by that point, like, it was like 5 years into the show's life, there was fans for it, but, given that now it's hitting the decade, you're probably going to get a lot more nostalgia for it. I don't know, it kind of worked for the Simpsons movie and even the second SpongeBob movie where, with more of the nostalgia built in, it definitely got its audience there, but again, who knows? It all also depends on the marketing and the timing. It was definitely something where it's like watching it in the big screen was definitely nice. It was just a fun experience, and just seeing 2D again, because of course 2D is not that common to get in theaters anymore, which sucks because it's just always nice to look at. Man, yeah, this is just one funny movie, and it's just great how they handled this stuff. I mean, in many ways, like I mentioned earlier, this feels like SpongeBob. Like I do, not that Cartoon Network really needs it because Cartoon Network has so many classics, whether it's Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, you name it. Almost a good chunk of their shows are classics, which is why I often consider them to be like the best ones when it comes to like the kids show channels, like between them, Nickelodeon, Disney, whatever. I can tell you so many classics from them, like Regular Show, Courage the Cowardly Dog. They have no need to have their equivalent of SpongeBob because, granted, SpongeBob is definitely a top tier kids cartoon. It's one of the things that puts Nickelodeon close to the top. They're not there because they have a lot of shows that I just do not care for, but SpongeBob is so strong that it's like, okay, yeah, this thing, at least for me, takes down even a lot of the stuff that I love from Cartoon Network. This thing gets close just because of the absurdism, the anarchic feeling in the show. Like it really delves into like the crazy stuff. Thinking about the animation, like even with this movie, it doesn't just rely on just like how the show looks like. Like they do different art styles for like when they do like the inspirational song. It's done a bit more cutesy. There's a whole dream sequence that is modeled after like Disney movies, specifically the Lion King, and it's really well animated. Uh, the superhero movie song is very stylized. It's very cool looking. There's like a bit of like cutout animation for like this cute little movie that the Titans do to cheer up Robin, which he doesn't like because he wants a real movie. It's all this stuff that makes me say like, okay, yeah, this is a really well animated movie. Like even if you don't like a certain style of animation that appears in it, there's another one that shows up that just looks great, and it's just so experimental in that way. I mean, granted, I kind of hesitate to actually say experimental just because it doesn't fully transform into like different kind of mediums. Like it doesn't like do stop motion. At most, there's like the cutout animation, but it's not like they're doing a bunch of different animation styles. I mean, they do a different animation art styles, but not like different ways of doing animation. Like it's not like a stop motion CG, that kind of thing. Like if you've ever seen Cut Down Underpants, I know that movie has a few more sequences where it's like, oh, at times here's some 2D, here's some puppetry and stuff like that. But still, like the fact that it does these different art styles and just fully goes in on it is just great. Like it really does just remind me of how crazy SpongeBob can get sometimes. And even like the spinoffs, like I haven't seen the Patrick Show, but I know that based on what I've seen like on clips and whatnot, like that fully embraces that kind of style. But yeah, like Teen Titans Go, like the show does that, and the movie, of course, had to live up to that and do it as well. It's just all really great stuff. Robin, of course, gets to shine in it. Scott Manville, again, like I've said, I just love this version of Robin where he's complete asshole, he's complete narcissist. It's just hilarious. Hendon Walk gets some good stuff. Tara Strong gets to shine, even when she does like when she does her singing, with the inspirational song. It's just really great stuff. Or during the Teen Titans Go rap, they all get to sing quite a bit. It's all just fun. And I don't know, it's like, just looking at it, I'm like, I don't get the hatred that this show gets. And considering that this movie was very well praised when it came out, and it's still very well loved, it's like, you get people who are like, oh, the movie was good, but the show isn't. And I'm like, dude, have you seen the show? It's just a bite-sized version of the movie. So I don't understand where this hatred for the show comes from. It's all just like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It just feels like a lot of people are just mad because it's not being a specific version of the show, or because they grew up with like the O3 show, and when they mentioned that they were coming back initially, they thought like, oh, it was gonna be like that, but they were upfront and saying like, no, it's gonna be like a goofy version of it. But a lot of people didn't like that, and I'm just like, I don't know, guys. It's really funny to me. It's really good. I don't see what your issue with it is. It's clever. It's fun, it's smart, it's it's one of the best shows out there right now, regardless of age range. Like, yeah, there are times where it leans a little too much onto the kids show stuff, which is perfectly fine. Kids deserve their thing, but when it's allowed to be for all ages, when it's allowed to actually do the stuff for the adults, it's just hilarious. It's definitely, for me, one of the best superhero shows ever made, regardless of it, how different it is. Like, it's such unique, and in my opinion, it's really necessary for the superhero genre, if you want to call it that, to have shows like this where it's like, okay, we can showcase that superheroes aren't just guy beats up bad guy, and the story is about the superhero learning to be a hero, and like all the generic stuff, and not to crap on a bunch of the superhero shows and movies that exist. But a lot of them do blend together, even when they're really good. And, like the great ones do different things to make them stand out, but you still need to find different ways to go about it. Like other, genres, whether it's like, like the musical genre, like, sometimes, the music can be funny. Sometimes the music can be dramatic. Sometimes it can be more horror based. Like they do try to explore these kind of things. Comedies, have different types of comedies. You got your absurd ones, you got your buddy comedies. You have to experiment with this stuff. So seeing this show that is a superhero show but does things very differently is why I just really appreciate it, because it's like, look, there's nothing quite like it in the superhero community, especially for like the for shows and movies, and it's something that we need more of, because when you read the comics, that the comics have already allowed for very different interpretations of these characters, that aren't just like how the movies portray them. So I don't see why doing that as a show is a problem. And again, with this movie, it's just like it does it perfectly to me. It's just a really fun time, and it's just like, look, just looking at it, I'm like, yeah, like the Mario movie has good directors on board. If they love Mario as much as they love comics, you're gonna get a lot of good references, but you're also gonna see like a lot of good detail to it. Of course, with Mario, it looks like it's gonna be a little more straightforward, so it's not like oh, we're gonna see like a parody of Mario. Like we're gonna see Mario being a jerk to Luigi, or we're gonna see Peach, pointing out how many times she's been kidnapped or stuff like that. Like it looks nothing like that. It looks more like a straightforward version of it, but having that humor in there and that love for the references showcases that, yeah, what they carried here, they carried over to that. Like, granted, I don't know whether or not they have a deep love for Mario or if it's just a matter of research, but if they have a deep love for Mario, great. If they have to do the research on it, to me, it's just even better. Like, okay, it shows that these guys do put in the homework to get what they want, because yeah, and again, like Michael Jelenic previously did Batman Brave and the Bold, which that one was also kind of comedic, but it was also a more serious version of like what Teen Titans Go would do, but it would have a lot of love for the comics, whether it was actual references to old Silver Age comics or character designs or just stuff like that. I don't know. It's definitely just like, yeah, it's in good hands, because this is a great, these people have done their work. And Teen Titans Go to the movies, to me, easily one of my favorite DC movies, one of the best superhero movies of the last few years, one of the best superhero movies, period. Like I would definitely rank it within the top 20, top 15, maybe even top 10. I would definitely have to sit down someday and see where I would put it at, but it would definitely be on the higher end of superhero movies, because it's such a great time, whether you're watching it on a big screen or at home. Like, of course, not all jokes land, but the jokes that do land are so good. Especially, seeing how much we're in the superhero culture. Like, granted, who knows if we're still there? It might be moving away towards that, because, well, I don't want to say that superhero movies haven't done well over the last few years. It seems like they've kind of stopped doing as well as they used to. And it could be the pandemic, it could be a number of factors, but I'm not ruling out that maybe people are moving away from superhero movies being the dominant thing. Not to say that they're not going to be popular anymore, but they're probably not going to be like the main thing that people focus on. Like, there's probably going to be a new thing that people focus on. I really don't know. But having lived through the superhero genre, dominating the box office, dominating the culture, this is hilarious. And even if you haven't lived through that, realistically, if you're watching this, you definitely have. But even if you haven't, like if you're watching this years into the future and superheroes are definitely no longer that popular thing, like we only get one that's really big and everything else is like, oh, every now and then, this is still a very funny movie. It just has that little bit that makes it even funnier. Like any great parody, you don't have to be there to, or you don't have to fully understand what it's lampooning to find it funny, but when you do, it's an incredible masterpiece. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time.
Teen Titans Go to the movies. Because if Aquaman can get a movie, anyone can.
Thank you for coming on today. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, where you'll see video versions of these podcasts. And if you just want to listen to them, there's always the option of just following the podcast on their various sites, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, or Apple Podcasts. Whatever you choose, I hope you continue enjoying these. And if you want to support me even further than that, there's always the option of Patreon. With Patreon, even just $1 will get your name on the video versions of this and on other videos that I may do outside of these podcasts. A few dollars more gets you some behind the scenes info, and as this continues to grow, you'll find that there's more perks to it. So I hope you consider supporting me through Patreon as well. In any case, again, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.